I'll go ahead and call this special meeting of July the 22nd, 2015 of the Manatee County Commission to order. On the phone, we do have Madam Chair Betsy Benak and Commissioner Robin DiSabantino. So with that being said, we also have Rob Eschenfelder, I believe, who's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Present and on the phone, Robert Eschenfelder, County Attorney's Office. We're here in a special meeting today for one action item, which is to accept the settlement agreement in the county's economic damages claim against BP and other parties associated with the oil spill that occurred in the Gulf of Mexico some years ago. And your agenda materials have a great deal of the background in them already. So I'll just briefly remind y'all that after the oil spill occurred on February the 7th of 2012, the Board of County Commissioners did agree to enter into a retainer agreement with a group of outside law firms to represent us. Those outside law firms filed a 106-page complaint, Manatee County versus BP Exploration et al. The lawyers have been working on that complaint for a variety of years. At some point, the various complaints against BP were consolidated in federal court, and the federal court has attempted to develop a global solution for BP, which it has. That solution has resulted in an offer of $1.442091. That's $1,442,091 in exchange for a release of BP. The offer came from the federal court, and just to let folks understand, the federal court appointed what it called a group of four neutrals, and these were four people in the country who were luminaries and so forth in their respective fields, and the court charged this group with coming up with a solution, with a formula that could be lend itself to equal treatment. That group went behind closed doors and did that, and the number that we have been offered is a result of that. There have been a variety of other local governments that have also in recent weeks accepted offers based upon the same formula. But under the court's order, it is a non-negotiable order. The number is a final number that the court is standing behind, and so the county's options today are to accept this particular number or to not. And of course, it is your option to not. And in that case, you would have to continue. We would have to continue to litigate against BP and the other defendants, and ultimately, if we went to trial, would have be able to prove our case according to the evidentiary standards of what our economic damages are. So. The court required that the release be signed by a date certain, and y'all were on your summer break, and so your county administrator, based upon our office's advice and the authority under the recess resolution, authorized Ed to sign the release, which he has, and that's in your materials as well. However, the court is requiring a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners that ratifies that signature of that release and that does formally accept the offer. The law firm is going to be sending the bundle of various local governments from Florida off to BP, I think tomorrow or the next day, and so therefore that's what necessitated our special meeting here today. I do want to just make a note, since of course members of the media have been inquiring and so forth about this for some time, that the court did enter a very explicit order indicating to all parties who received it, and that order was filed in the court on June 15th, that strictly required anybody within the local government that was going to be working on this to not disclose it to anyone else. And so there was only a very small amount of people. We actually had to sign our name to the judge's order and swear that we would not talk about it until it was time to advertise it, and so we did. It is the recommendation both of the administration and the county attorney's office from the legal standpoint that this offer be accepted, and I don't think that it should go without saying that while I'm here presenting this case, that my predecessor, Mr. Minnick, spent many, many hours of his time working on it to try to make sure that we were in good position. So definitely want to make sure he gets his credit that is due. And as well, from the administration, Mr. Greg Wright, who is in the audience from financial management, worked closely with Mr. Minnick to develop our claim numbers and to work with the outside accountants back in 2012 when we were developing what our claim was going to be. So with that said, I will open up the questions, and if you have none, then of course under the right to speak law, we need to see if there's anyone in the audience who desires to speak to the item.
Commissioners, any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question. I haven't read all the documents, but this settlement is from Manatee County government, correct?
I'm glad you asked that question, Commissioner, because I probably should have touched upon that. This is just for Manatee County government's direct economic losses. So we're talking about lost revenue, added advertisement that we had to do to tell people that our beaches were safe to come to. There's whole other claims that are out there. Y'all have heard of the Restore Act and so forth. And Manatee County is in line to get a basket of Restore Act money as well. Those are more in the line of civil fines that the court will impose upon BP, separate and apart from us needing to prove a particular claim. And so there will be a separate formula where those monies will be allocated to us as well. This resolution today does not resolve the Restore Act claims.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that. So there's no other entity can come in here and say, well, that 1.4 million you settled, we're supposed to get 200,000 of that money.
No, sir. This is
All right, I'm just being sure because everybody didn't file.
Understood. No. For private business owners, hoteliers, and so forth, there's separate lawsuits that were filed by all of them, and those have also been consolidated. So this is just Manatee County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, our claims and our claims alone.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And I'm aware of other cities too that have recently had done the same thing that we're doing today. In fact, one of the other cities in Manatee County actually approved it last week. So the cities are moving forward on this also.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I probably should state for the record, it has nothing to do with government, but my organization, Operation People for Peace, we involve about 11,000 deep sea horizon claims. So I want to put that publicly on the record.
Okay.
That was filed. Okay.
Our two commissioners that are on the phone, do you have any questions? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. And I'm here also.
Okay. I recognize both voices there. So
I don't have any questions at the moment.
No, that was a good question Charles asked. I'm glad that was clarified, that this is a totally separate action than the Restore Act money that we anticipate is still coming down the pike. This is just kind of the first settlement, if you will. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, the law firms that were representing us, as well as a wide variety of other local government entities, will be taking a 20% contingency fee off of the top of this $1.442 million number. So what we will receive will be a net number that will be minus the 20% contingency fee and minus the costs that were incurred by the law firm in representing us. We haven't seen those numbers yet, although we expect them to be relatively minor.
Yeah. I believe in my discussion.
A question
Go ahead, Commissioner.
for the county attorney or administrator. Their fee is in addition to monies that we had put into their council as well. So this is an addition, or is this a separate attorney firm?
I'm not sure I followed
Legal
the question. Did you follow the
No.
question? Robin, could you repeat the question, please?
I believe in the past we also gave money to a legal firm. Is that for a separate cause, separate from this?
Yes, the golf course.
Because we were part of a group of probably
Yeah,
20
that-
from other counties.
That is the consortium that is pursuing the Restore Act money. Yeah, that's a separate,
Okay.
separate
Yes.
firm, correct.
Yes, that is a separate law firm. Yes, yes.
Right, and when that comes to pass, we shouldn't have, should we or shouldn't we have a percentage taken out because we put up money in advance?
That's separate.
It is my understanding, I can confirm it for you, Commissioner DeSabatino, after the hearing when you return, but it is my understanding that that's operated instead of a contingency, that it was more of a, all of you will donate a portion, similar to some other litigation we've all gotten into. And so the firm has been paid a little bit by a lot of people, and that's how they're getting compensated. It's not going to be a contingency fee as this was.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. When do we anticipate the check being written to Manatee County?
I'm glad you asked that as well, because the firm says maybe late September, but I want to make it clear that procedurally this is a bit of a different animal. Typically when you're resolving litigation, the one side says, I will offer to settle with you, other side, and presents a settlement piece of paper. In this particular case, the court, of its own auspices, has bundled together what it feels are fair settlements for all the local governments, and the court intends to deliver those to BP and say, here, I, the court, think this is fair. So technically speaking, although BP's board has approved this and has announced, we're going to fund it, technically speaking, this isn't an offer of a settlement from BP as much as it is we're doing all the paperwork that the court will then put in front of BP for BP then to globally finally accept so as to bring these consolidated actions to an end. I say that because theoretically there can be a chance for BP to look at it all and say, never mind, we don't want to do it. And I doubt that they will do that. But as far as when we're going to get the money, there can't be anything in writing really until BP gets it in a few weeks and signs everybody's counter releases, and we should have a better idea. And as soon as our office is made aware of that, we'll make sure that everyone in the administration knows with more certainty when we expect the check to come. The release does have our helpful banking routing number, so we've given them the easiest way to get it to us. But all we've been told now is late September.
Okay, and one more question, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I've had it asked of me. County Administrator, when these monies come forward, we haven't voted, or will the money be put in the general fund, or how will we handle that? What are your thoughts?
At this point in time, I would suspect we would put the money in the general fund, in a reserve, and for the board to make a decision about how to spend it, or leave it in reserves. We will have that discussion when we receive the money as to what the options are available to the board. But that's a discussion for another day. You're right.
I knew that we had talked a little bit, but I think it was about the Restore Act.
And that's yet another good point, Commissioner Baugh, is that unlike the Restore Act, which does have some restrictions on how those funds are utilized, these funds, because they are compensating us for our damages, are unrestricted funds. So we could buy a tractor, we could do whatever we want to with the funds that come in. So as we've discussed it, I think that the most wise course of action is when we get the funds, then Ed will bring forward a proposal to you all of how those funds would be utilized.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And I think I was chair when this happened, and I just remember, and whether we decide to do what we're going to do is fine, but when this all happened, there was discussion at the board at that time, and I know we have an entirely different board, that whatever things that the county gets compensated in the past, I'm not saying this one, but that we'll remember that it was one of the biggest environmental disasters in the state of Florida's history. You remember?
I do, I remember
that. We
that.
would at least keep that in mind, because everybody is having their hands out, that we want to make sure that we remember what was affected when that happened.
Right.
So that's all I'll say.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair.
this is Betsy, and I do think it's important that we remember that this particular payment is due to the loss of
Business.
tax revenue
No, I know.
that the county would have received if we'd had the economic development that would have taken place. It's a very specialized, so where the Restore Act is very specific to environmental restoration, this is a little bit different because these are the tax dollars, as I understand it, that we would have received if we hadn't had an economic impact. Is that correct?
You are correct, Commissioner Burnett.
So that gives us a little bit more flexibility. We do anticipate getting significant funds still, I believe, under the Restore Act, hopefully. that will be totally focused on environmental restoration. This is just slightly different.
Correct.
I do remember that conversation as well, Commissioner Benak, so I think it'll be a good conversation when we get this money in here on the dais. Any other questions or comments?
I think you do have to open it to the floor under the right to speak law, so.
Anyone from the public that is going to speak, we can only speak on this agenda item. Come up and give us your name, please.
Barbara Hines, Holmes Beach, and Commissioner Whitmore is absolutely right. I probably, besides Commissioner Whitmore, may be the only person who was there at that meeting. But that commission was concerned about any damages to the environment, and believe me, some advantages aren't known now. I also want to state, after hearing your attorney, that this is the most incredible job of attorneying that I have ever seen, because week after week, month after month, year after year, we hear and about how much we have benefited from the disaster. I can tell you, because I live in Holmes Beach and I do volunteer work at the Artists Guild and did volunteer work also at Island Gallery West until recently, that people would, from places that we never got in the summer, would be there. People would be filling our restaurants, and they were there because they had booked in the Panhandle and they couldn't go there. And I've run into some of those people even this year, and they're still coming because they discovered that we had a beautiful, pristine beach. And the only thing that really bothers me, and it does bother me, there are people in the Panhandle and businesses that are really hurting, that have not been able to reopen. And there's only so much money. And even though we've benefited, we're taking their money. And I just felt that somebody had to say that. Thank you much. And again, Commissioner Whitmore is absolutely right. Bye.
Any other public comment? Come on down.
First of all, I want to say I'm sorry. I've been through Pensacola, and it used to be a very beautiful area. I wasn't aware. I'm a little bit more aware of being from my name is Nancy Langford. I'm a resident in Manatee County. I've been a Florida resident for most of my life, since 1972. And I'm a water baby. I grew up on the bayou, so of course when I came down here, I had a sailboat, and I spent most of my life in the water. So sea life and dolphins is one of my favorite things, and my ancestors came here to America back in the 1600s, and so I'm proud of our country, and I'm proud of our beaches, and I've always been proud of our Florida. I did move away for 7 years and came back. So I'm very concerned that we don't know and understand the full-blown situation. And my husband and I, he's from North Carolina, my husband and I moved back here in 2011, so it was after the spill. And the first year, I tried to grow a small garden, and I had issues. I won't go into it other than the dwarfing and wilting and some major issues. The next year, we tried some fruits, and we used organic seed and that type of thing. Still some issues. I can't hardly breathe. This is a big thing for me. My husband last summer, he almost lost his eye, and he was never in the water. And he had what's called iceitis. And it was after he rode the riding lawnmower. We have a horse that we keep out at his stable. And it was after major rains like we just had. And something blew into his eye, and he almost lost his eye. It was 2 days a week we had to be with Dr. Hahn to save his eye. And still, it didn't click. I didn't understand. It was only until I saw the leaves of one of my rose bushes. I've been seeing the little white dots on cars, and that's when I started to do some heavy-duty investigation. I like to research. I'm a writer. I've written movies, I've written books. So I started my investigation. And being from Louisiana, I have contacts in Louisiana and Arkansas and Alabama and Mississippi. And I just want to say that my husband and I went out on a canoe. We were out on Manatee Avenue. He's had surgeries on his arms. We rode out, we were coming back, and all of a sudden we see this thing that looks like sea foam, but it looks more like Tide laundry detergent sitting on the top of the water. And we never saw a fish, not a minnow, the whole time we were out there, and the water was clear. You could, I mean, it was pretty. I was impressed that it was so clear, you know. And I came up close to the foam, and I realized I saw the little dots, and we still had no clue what it was. I hit it with the paddle and it sunk, but you could see strings and you could see big old balls underneath it. I'm sorry, I ran out of my time, maybe.
We'll give you a
Anyway,
few more minutes.
the long story short was, it was the core exit disbursement that has been laid down. It was the tar oil balls in the water, and it's in our rain. I found that out after my rose bushes had the oil in the leaves. I have talked to people, one lady that fell down, she scraped her arm from here to here on the concrete. She ended up with flesh-eating bacteria, and her arm was removed. On a sunny summer day, July 2013, a 5-year-old boy and his family visited relatives in St. Bernard's Parish, Louisiana. The last thing on their mind was brain-eating amobia. This boy was on a slip and slide that had tap water. He's dead now. We are not taking this serious enough. That money is nowhere close enough to what the damages are. I know we don't want to tell tourists and people that are moving into Florida that this stuff is in our rain, because that's going to scare everybody away. It's bad enough our economy is as bad as it is. I totally get that. And I don't want a target on my back either, because there's some people that, let's face it, they're greedy. And
I'm going to have to ask you to
yes,
finish up if you can.
my point is this settlement is nowhere close to what it's going to take to clean up the situation and to inform residents of what the dangers are in our rain and in our environment in the present day. And they have to be informed. How many people are we going to lose to this bacteria that's locked into this core exit tarball situation? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, public comment is closed. Do I hear an action from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R-15-118.
Second the motion.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Whitmore and a second from Commissioner Smith.
And that motion includes ratification of the prior execution of the release document. I believe that was written into the form of
It was
motion.
recommended, yes.
Yeah, that's in the resolution, right, Rob?
Yes, it's in the form of motion that's in the
Right,
agenda.
Yeah.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Whoa,
Aye.
they were there. Scared.
Heard you guys. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that's the end of this meeting. I appreciate everyone coming out. Commissioner Benak and Commissioner DiSabantino, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for setting it up, and thank you for being there.
We look forward to seeing both of you next week.
See y'all or whoever's there at the MPO on Monday.
Yep, see you there. All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.